Ever since Borushiki's debut in chapter 43, one of the biggest questions fans have been asking is why Boruto's horn looks the way it does. Why does Boruto's horn grow vertically from the front of his head and angle inwards rather than protruding from the top of his head and curling forwards like Momoshiki's did? It doesn't look like Momoshiki's horns during his invasion at the start of the series. It doesn't look like fused Momoshiki's horns after he ate Kinshiki, nor does it look like Momoshiki's broken horns now. It doesn't really look like any of them, and that's pretty strange. Considering that Boruto has Momoshiki's Karma Seal, why wouldn't Boruto have the same horn shape as at least one of the Momoshiki forms we've seen? It honestly looks more like Kinshiki's horn than it does Momoshiki's, which would have been fine if not for the fact that fused Momoshiki's horns didn't remotely look like Borushiki or Kinshiki's horns. So if eating Kinshiki didn't make Momoshiki's horns look more like Kinshiki's, why would Boruto be any different? This gives me the impression that something else is going on here, so let's take a look at what might be causing this. The best place to start is by looking at all of the Otsutsuki horns we've seen so far, and picking out the ones that look the most like Borushiki's. We can very easily cross off Momoshiki, Ishiki, Urashiki, Toneri, Hagoromo, and Hamura from this list, as none of their horns look anything like Borushiki's, and Toneri doesn't even have horns to begin with, and Kinshiki's influence is pretty unconvincing since he didn't change Momoshiki's horns to look like Borushiki's like I said earlier. Now if you look at how Ikimoto draws Kaguya's horns in chapters 35 and 46, her horns actually look a lot more like Borushiki's than the others do, but her horns seem to protrude from the top of her head like Momoshiki's, rather than the front of her head like Borushiki's, which is a little bit suspicious. However, things got really interesting after chapter 75 when we were introduced to Shibai Otsutsuki and saw a glimpse of what he looked like. People started freaking out when this chapter came out because Borushiki's horn actually looks quite a lot like Shibai's horns, and unlike Kaguya, Shibai's horns actually grow from the front of his head like Borushiki's. Boruto's horn just isn't quite as thick or elegant looking as Shibai's, but that's not a huge concern because Kawaki's horn doesn't grow all the way around his head like Jigen and Ishiki's did, most likely because he doesn't have 100% of Ishiki's data, so the same concept could apply to Boruto, who left off at 82% of Momoshiki's data before he had to mess with things to revive Boruto. That extra 18% may have made the horn look a little bit thicker like Shibai's, just as the remaining Ishiki data would likely make Kawaki's horn grow all the way around his head. So assuming Shibai's horn is our winning candidate here, why the heck does Boruto have Shibai's horn when he has Momoshiki's Karma Seal in data?
Oh boy, oh brother, wow.
Seriously? You asked why?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is simply that Boruto has inherited some of Shibai's power. Not the most philosophically deep answer I know, but that's probably the answer. Now just to be clear, I don't mean that he's Shibai's reincarnate, like how Naruto is Ashura's reincarnate, nor do I mean that he's inherited some ridiculous crap load amount of Shibai's power or anything close to that of Eida or Daemon. Just that he might have gotten a sliver of Shibai's power, which is all he needs, and I'm gonna explain several reasons why this might be the case. Sticking with the horns topic for just a little while longer, the growth of a Karma Vessel's horn is clearly linked to that Otsutsuki's chakra contained within the Karma Seal. Kawaki and Jigen both had Ishiki's Karma Seal, and grew Ishiki's horn once they used a certain level of power from their Karma Seals, seemingly something around 75 to 80% or so, since Boruto and Kawaki didn't start growing horns until about 80% of their Karma Seals had been extracted. And then in the case of Code, he probably can't access enough chakra with his white Karma Seal to grow a horn. So if Boruto is growing Shibai's horn or 82% of his complete horn size, that might mean Boruto has some of Shibai's chakra, at least while he's using Momoshiki's chakra from the Karma Seal, whereas Shibai's chakra is the more powerful chakra, and so his horn manifests instead of Momoshiki's. This does not mean that Boruto is using 82% of Shibai's chakra. That is definitely not the case. It just means that there might be a little bit of Shibai's chakra in the mix. And that actually makes a lot of sense power scaling wise. A lot of people have always been confused as to how Borushiki, with 82% of Momoshiki's data, is an even match for Kawaki with 80% of Ishiki's data at full power, given how much stronger Ishiki was compared to Momoshiki. I'll give Momoshiki some credit and admit part of it is probably because Momoshiki's biggest weaknesses have been improved upon as Borushiki, as power wasn't really his weakness so much as it was being cocky, poor in taijutsu skill, and needing to absorb jutsu to fire back jutsu. Now as Borushiki, Momoshiki fights smarter and more skillfully than he used to, and he can just spam Boruto's jutsu and even make them stronger than Boruto himself can to make massive Rasengans, and he can also create his own variations like the Rasendan. However, Ishiki really was on a completely different level from Momoshiki, both in skill and in power. And Amato makes that very clear when he says that this world will end if Ishiki takes over Kawaki's body, where Naruto and Sasuke had previously beaten the crap out of Momoshiki. Ishiki was just that strong. And that's even comparing Ishiki to fused Momoshiki. Momoshiki may or may not even have Kinshiki's power anymore, given that he looks like his original form again, which means that gap might be even bigger than it already was. Not only that, Kawaki also has additional benefits that Jigen and Ishiki never had, those being Kawaki's Ninja Tech body morphing ability that allows him to create weapons for offense and shields for defense, some level of regeneration, and he also has ninjutsu on top of that. Furthermore, it's implied that base Kawaki is a little bit stronger than base Boruto, as when they fought in chapter 58 in episode 288, Boruto was forced to use his Karma Seal to beat base Kawaki, and in the anime, base Kawaki was just blatantly beating base Boruto in that fight until Boruto finally used his Karma Seal and started beating Kawaki. So even with Momoshiki's improvements in mind, if base Kawaki is a little bit stronger than base Boruto, and Kawaki is drawing upon Ishiki's power, which is significantly greater than Momoshiki's, it's pretty suspicious how Momoshiki was able to break such a huge gap in power. However, once you throw Shibai's chakra into the mix, it's no longer so unbelievable that Boruto could stay pretty even with Kawaki, as that little bit of Shibai's chakra could just fill in the gap between Momoshiki and Ishiki. And then Kawaki's slight edge on Boruto is what keeps him ever so slightly ahead of Borushiki. As we've seen very clearly with Eida and Daemon, Shibai's power is ridiculous. Some unknown amount of Shibai DNA has put Daemon leagues ahead of Jigen, easily beating up Code, who's stronger than Jigen without even trying during that fight. And Code is also implied to have gotten some of Shibai's power too, which would explain how he got the claw marks and became stronger than Jigen, even though he was supposed to have a failed Karma Seal from Ishiki. So Shibai's power is certainly capable of bridging the gap between Momoshiki and Ishiki, but it's important to note that whatever amount of Shibai's power Boruto might have is definitely less than that of Eida and Daemon, as Daemon is far stronger than Boruto and Kawaki with Shibai's DNA alone. That's why I said Boruto might have just a sliver of Shibai's chakra, enough to even out with Kawaki but not enough to put him on Daemon's level. To throw some hypothetical numbers out there, if Daemon has, let's say, 10% of Shibai's DNA and power, Boruto might only have like 1% of Shibai's chakra. Just an eensy-weensy little bit, but it still makes a big difference. So now that we've explained how Shibai's chakra could help explain Borushiki's horn and power scaling, the major question you're probably asking is, how did Boruto get Shibai's chakra in the first place?
But how? I don't get it!
I can only think of 3 ways Boruto could have gotten Shibai's chakra, while only getting a very tiny portion of it. And those are that he was just born with it, Toneri gave it to Boruto so he'd awaken the Jogan, and that's the thing Urashiki was referring to when he said Toneri did something to that woman's son. Or the mixture of Momoshiki's chakra and data with Boruto's Otsutsuki genetics that stemmed back to Kaguya resulted in the recreation of Shibai's chakra, very similarly to how mixing Indra and Ashura's chakra recreated Hagoromo's chakra. Or possibly a combination of Momoshiki's chakra and whatever Toneri did to Boruto, resulted in the recreation of Shibai's chakra. The first option doesn't have much to it. It would just mean that when Momoshiki said that Boruto had Byakugan blood and strongly inherited the power of the Otsutsuki, while also looking at his Jogan in the anime, he meant that Boruto inherited some of Shibai's power through his genetics, and that's all there is to it. As for Toneri, we know that Boruto has the Jogan independent of Momoshiki's data, as he already had it before he even got Momoshiki's Karma Seal, and Toneri supposedly did something to Boruto according to Urashiki, although we still don't know what he did exactly. We've also seen Boruto's Jogan display similar abilities to Eida's Senrigan to be able to see his friends while he was in another dimension during the Niue arc, and he can also see negative emotions with it, similar to Daemon's dojutsu somehow reading negative intent towards Daemon. And all three dojutsu all resemble different phases of the moon as well. Because of that, a common theory is that Eida and Daemon's dojutsu derive from the Jogan, just like how the Sharingan derived from the Hagoromo's Rinnegan, which is why they supposedly got their dojutsu and abilities from Shibai, even though Shibai doesn't seem to have either of their dojutsu. If Shibai had the Jogan and their dojutsu derived from it, just like how Hagoromo had the Rinnegan and his son Indra got the Sharingan, that could make a lot of sense. The only potential problem is that in the image of Shibai we saw in chapter 75, he seems to have a Byakugan instead of the Jogan, but it's possible that he can cycle between the eyes like how Urashiki can cycle between the Byakugan and two different colored Rinnegans. There's also that godlike figure from chapter 55, who did appear to have the Jogan, where both Amato and Ishiki know who Shibai is and that he became a god, so regardless of whether that was the real Ishiki or just Amato making a projection for code, it's possible that they were imagining Shibai after he became a god and ascended to a higher dimension, where he pretty clearly seems to have awakened the Jogan by that point, if that really is Shibai and not just a hypothetical concept. In any case, if Shibai does have the Jogan, and that is where Boruto's Jogan comes from, it's just a matter of whether Toneri only helped Boruto awaken it prematurely, or if he did something to give it to Boruto in the first place, such as somehow giving him Shibai's chakra at some unknown point. If it's the former, that brings us back to Boruto just being born with it because of his genetics. If it's the latter, then maybe Toneri found Shibai's remains like Amato and used those to give Boruto some of his power somehow. Who knows? But now let's get into that last option, which is probably the most interesting one, which is that the combination of Momoshiki's chakra and Boruto's Otsutsuki genetics resulted in the recreation of Shibai's chakra. The idea behind this is exactly the same as how Madara awakened the Rinnegan. As Hagoromo explained, Madara was Indra's reincarnate and Hashirama was Ashura's reincarnate, and when Madara implanted Hashirama's flesh into his own body, this resulted in the merging of part of Ashura's chakra with Indra's chakra, which then resulted in the derivation of Hagoromo's own chakra's power, which was the Rinnegan. So the combination of Indra and Ashura's chakra recreated Hagoromo's chakra. Kaguya also tried to take back the chakra that had dispersed into her two children, which gives the impression that the combination of Hagoromo and Hamaru's chakra would probably result in the recreation of Kaguya's chakra. It's important to note that you don't need all of each person's chakra or an even split to do this. You can just merge a small portion and only recreate a small portion. Obito was able to revive the Ten Tails even with only a small portion of the 8 and 9 Tails chakra. It just wasn't as strong as it could have been with the whole 8 and 9 Tails. Similarly, Madara only implanted a little bit of Hashirama's flesh into himself, but he was still able to recreate some of Hagoromo's chakra and awaken the Rinnegan. He didn't recreate all of Hagoromo's chakra doing this, he just recreated a little bit. It's the same as chemical reactions in real life. If Madara had, let's say, 100 parts Indra chakra and mixed in 1 part Ashura chakra, he just recreated 1 part Hagoromo chakra, which was still enough to recreate the Rinnegan. Those numbers aren't necessarily accurate to scale, but you get the idea. And if mixing Hagoromo and Hamaru's chakra recreates Kaguya's chakra, then this same idea could apply here too. Just a little bit of Hagoromo and Hamaru's chakra could recreate just a little bit of Kaguya's chakra. Now, as we all know, Hagoromo gave Naruto half of his power in the War Arc of Naruto, and he retained some of that power even as an adult in Boruto, which is why he still had 6-path Sage Mode before he lost Kurama, and the same goes for Sasuke, who still had the Rinnegan before Borushiki stabbed it out. Similarly, Hamura gave Hinata some of his chakra too in Naruto the Last, and so when Naruto and Hinata had Boruto and Himawari, it's entirely possible that some of Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra merged to recreate a small amount of Kaguya's chakra within their kids, which could be why Himawari has that crazy Byakugan mode and hidden potential that Daemon hyped up. So if we were to continue this pattern again, if Shibai just so happens to be the father of Momoshiki and Kaguya who look like they could be siblings, the merging of their chakras could possibly result in the recreation of Shibai's chakra, just like with the Hagoromo situation, where Boruto just had like 1 part Kaguya chakra in the mix. 1 part Momoshiki chakra that extracted from the Karma seal could merge with Kaguya's chakra to recreate 1 part Shibai chakra, which could be enough to bridge the gap in power between Momoshiki and Nishiki like I explained earlier, because Shibai is just that strong. However, while this answer explains Boroshiki's horn and power scaling, it doesn't explain why Boruto had the Jogan before getting Momoshiki's Karma seal. So something about Boruto's innate genetics or whatever Toneri did is still important here. If Momoshiki and Kaguya are siblings and the children of Shibai and their chakras merged into some of Shibai's chakra because of Momoshiki's Karma seal, that's fine and dandy, but it has to be in combination with either Boruto being born with the Jogan already or gifted it via whatever Toneri did to Boruto. I personally find Toneri's involvement more interesting than Boruto just being born with the Jogan. And I also think the idea of Momoshiki and Kaguya being siblings and Shibai's children is interesting too. So my personal hope is that Toneri did something cool so that Boruto would awaken the Jogan to save the world from the gods in the future, and that Momoshiki and Kaguya are siblings and their chakras merged to recreate some of Shibai's chakra, helping Boruto keep up with Kawaki when he otherwise probably wouldn't be able to. However, it's possible that it's purely because of Boruto's genetics alone and that's it, or purely because of Toneri's involvement, but I think that would be a lot more boring than it needs to be. Now, I know some of you might be thinking about a 4th possibility in all of this, which is that Momoshiki could just be Shibai in disguise, but I'm gonna save that for my next video because there's a lot of things I want to say about that theory, but I want to hear what you guys think. First of all, do you think Borushiki even has Shibai's horn to begin with? Or do you think it's Kaguya's or someone else's, or is it just a brand new horn and it's not actually any other Otsutsuki's horn? And if you do think it's Shibai's horn, how and why do you think Boruto has it? Is it purely because of his genetics? Is it purely because of whatever Toneri did to Boruto? Is it because of Kaguya and Momoshiki's chakra merging within Boruto to recreate Shibai's chakra? Is it a combination of Toneri's actions and Kaguya and Momoshiki's chakra merging? Is it a combination of all 3 things? Is it because Momoshiki is actually Shibai in disguise? Or is it because of something else I didn't think of? And do you think Boruto having Shibai's chakra helps explain Boroshiki's power level in comparison to Kawaki's? Let me know in the comment section below, but that's a wrap on today's video, so thank you guys for watching until the end.
You're already under my genjutsu.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, become a member, check out my podcast channel, and hit the bell icon for notifications.
Sorry, Sasuke. Maybe some other time.
Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.